My brother slapped and busted my lip because I refused to wash the dishes. 4 years later, he is begging to be in my life again. My brother James and I were really close before this, but I didn't feel safe around him after what happened. So, rewind to 4 years ago. I was at James's house for the summer. At that time, my brother was stressed out. He was an intern, worked a part-time job on the side, had bills to pay, and then on top of that had to take care of 16-year-old me. It was hard, I understand that. But that doesn't make what he did understandable. So around April of that year, his rent increased by a lot. So he got another part-time job. One day after a long night shift, he came home, he was really tired and had to go to his second job. I could tell he was stressed out, so I made him some dinner. I left dishes in the sink, cause I also was very tired. I went to sleep and woke up the next day to him yelling for me to wash all the dishes before he got home. He was leaving for work and already did everything he needed to in the kitchen. I'm guessing the dishes just bothered him. I was like, okay, and was walking back into my room to go back to sleep like any normal person would cause I could just do it later. Then he goes bat poop crazy yelling at me that I'm lazy and can't do anything, and I'm always in my room 247. I was so confused, so I was like, bro, are you okay? And he saw that as a form of disrespect and slapped me. My brother is a gym rat who plays football and boxes crazy. I know. So, I'm like, what the F? You just hit me, and screamed at him. He said, STFU. And I continued yelling at him, and he hit me again, but this time he busted my lip, so my teeth bit the top part really hard, deep, and same with my bottom lip. So blood is dripping everywhere, and my brother says clean this mess up. I can't forget those words to this day. I proceeded to have a panic attack for about an hour and patched myself up. By that time, my lip was really swollen. It looked like I did the Kylie Jenner lip trend lipstick. I packed up all my things and left. I went back to my parents' house because again I was there for the summer. When I got home, I didn't tell my parents what happened. But later in the day my phone started blowing up. My brother was texting, calling, and leaving voicemails trying to reach me in any way possible. I blocked him on everything, and after he couldn't reach me, he talked to my parents and told them what happened. They of course were mad at him, but eventually got over it. After a month or so, I told him that I would not contact him again, that he should really leave me alone, and that he should stop trying because I would never trust him or feel safe around him again. I haven't contacted him since. But here comes the problem. This year I finally got an internship at a hospital where I've wanted to work since I was a little kid. I was so excited that I held the party for myself, put it all over social media, and invited all of my family except my brother. He found out. I'm unsure who told him yet, but I will figure it out. He got a hold of my social media. I'm unsure who gave it to him, but he contacted me using a fake account and asked why he wasn't invited. I told him I hadn't talked to him for the past 4 years, and why he would expect me to ever say anything to him again. He said that because he is family, he was hoping that I had forgiven him after what happened, and that I was too immature and needed to let him celebrate with me. He said that being an intern was a big part of his life too, and he could give me advice. I told him I didn't want anything from him, and that he should leave me alone. I blocked him. I blocked my brother again, and for a moment, I thought that would be the end of it. But as always, he found another way to sneak back into my life. The next day, I got a call from my mom. From the tone of her voice, I already knew it was going to be a difficult conversation. She started with the same old speech, saying that family is the most important thing in life, that I should let the past go, that James was sorry, and just wanted to reconcile. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, but the truth is, I was exhausted. Tired of having to relive that horrible day, tired of having to explain why I never wanted to have contact with him again. I told my mom it wasn't about resentment, it was about safety. How could I trust someone who physically hurt me and showed no remorse at the time? How could I forget those cold, cruel words while blood dripped down my face? But of course, to my mom, all of that was water under the bridge. She insisted that I should at least give him a chance. He just wants to talk to you, son, at least hear him out. I replied with a firm nose and hung up before I lost my patience. Little did I know this was just the beginning of another wave of problems. A few days later, I received a message from an unknown number. It was him. Even after I blocked every account he managed to create, he always found a way. This time, the message was short but disturbing. I'm still your brother. You can't erase me from your life. A chill ran down my spine. I knew he wouldn't give up so easily, but that sounded more like a threat than an apology. I ignored it, but the messages kept coming. Some were dramatic, begging for a chance at redemption, while others were offensive, calling me immature and saying I thought I was better than him. At first, I tried to stay composed and not respond, but he knew how to push my buttons. The breaking point came when he started posting indirect messages on social media, talking about ungrateful people who forget everything that was done for them. That made me snap. I replied just once, telling him that if he didn't stop harassing me, I would take legal action. Of course, he laughed it off. He always thought he could get away with anything. The next day, I went to my parents' house to talk in person because it was clear they were enabling his behavior. When I arrived, my mom opened the door with that guilty look, and I immediately knew James was inside. I almost turned around, but I decided to face the situation. "I told you guys not to involve me in this," I said, looking straight at my mom. She looked down, but James, with his usual smug expression, crossed his arms and smirked. "Relax, man. I just want to talk." I stayed silent, trying to control my anger. He launched into that rehearsed speech about how sorry he was, how much he had changed, and how he wanted to be part of my life again. He said he was doing well now, that he had learned a lot over the past years, and that he wanted to pass that experience on to me. "You want to help me?" I laughed bitterly. The same person who made me bleed, and then told me to clean up my own mess? He looked visibly uncomfortable, but still tried to keep his cool. "Man, I was going through a rough time, you know? I was overwhelmed. And so was I, James. I was 16. But I didn't hit anyone because of it." He had no response. My mom tried to intervene, saying that everyone makes mistakes and that we should forgive, but I was done with that narrative. Then my dad spoke up, and to my surprise, he sided with me. He said he understood my point of view and that James needed to accept the consequences of his actions. That made James lose his patience. "Oh, of course. Everyone's against me now, huh?" But when I was busting my ass to pay the bills, nobody said anything. He stood up, pointing his finger at me. "You've always been ungrateful. I did everything for you, and this is how you repay me?" I stared at him, incredulous. "You think taking care of me justified hitting me? Seriously?" He stayed silent, breathing heavily, trying to find something to say. Finally, he muttered something that made me realize he hadn't changed at all. "I just wanted you to help me more. I did what I had to do. That was enough for me." I grabbed my things and left my parents' house, ignoring my mom's pleas. On the way back home, I felt a mix of anger and relief. Anger because he still thought he was right, and relief because I finally saw that my decision to cut him out of my life was more than justified. But he didn't stop there. A few weeks later, I received an email from him. Long, dramatic, filled with cliches about family and forgiveness. He even mentioned that he had started therapy, as if that erased everything he did. The funny thing is, even while trying to sound apologetic, he still threw in indirect jabs, implying that I was holding a grudge and didn't know how to appreciate people. I deleted the email without replying. Now, every time I find myself celebrating an achievement, like finally starting my internship, I remember that the peace I have today was earned by keeping toxic people away. And if there's one thing I've learned in these 4 years, it's that family isn't an excuse to keep someone in your life who makes you feel unsafe. After deleting the email without responding, I thought I could finally move on without any more interference. But I underestimated how persistent James could be. A few weeks passed, and little by little, I realized he wasn't going to give up so easily. First, there were random messages from unknown numbers that popped up out of nowhere, always starting with a friendly tone, as if nothing had ever happened. I simply blocked them and moved on with my life. Then, I noticed that he had started following several of my friends on social media. Of course, he didn't introduce himself as my brother right away, but rather as an old acquaintance trying to reconnect with me. Things took a turn for the worse when some of those friends began asking why I held such a grudge against him. That's when I realized James was twisting the narrative, telling his own version of events and, of course, playing the victim. "I just want my brother to forgive me, but he hates me," he would say. The worst part was that some people started to believe him. To them, it seemed like a redemption story, an apologetic brother seeking a second chance, while I was the cold and unforgiving villain. That infuriated me. I had spent 4 years rebuilding my life, working hard to stay away from the toxicity he brought into it, and now he was trying to turn people against me. I knew I needed to do something, but the last thing I wanted was to get into a direct confrontation. James thrived on drama and manipulation, and if I reacted the wrong way, I'd only be giving him more ammunition. That's when I decided to play strategically. First, I started collecting evidence. I saved every message he sent, every email, every social media screenshot, everything. If he ever tried something more serious, I'd be ready. But that wasn't enough. I needed to make sure he had no room left in my life, or in the lives of those around me. I began opening up to a few trusted people, close friends who knew my history and stood by my side. I explained everything: how he assaulted me, how he had been obsessively trying to force his way back into my life. Slowly, I started closing the doors he was trying to pry open. He realized he was being blocked from several fronts, and it didn't take long for him to see that his sneaky approach wasn't working. Then he resorted to the most predictable tactic: our parents. He pressured them even more, claiming that I was destroying the family and that they needed to make me understand he only wanted a chance to redeem himself. Their response was predictable. My mom called me crying, saying he was suffering and that I should be more understanding. My dad, on the other hand, remained neutral as always. He never took sides, which to me meant he just let things happen without interference. I didn't give in. I told them I had made my decision years ago, and they needed to respect that. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end of it. That's when an idea started forming in my mind. If James was so determined to force his way into my life, I'd show him he was messing with the wrong person. First, I gathered all the evidence I had and consulted a lawyer. Even though I didn't want to take things to the extreme, it was good to know I had legal support if he ever crossed the line. Then I started subtly exposing the truth. I posted messages on social media about overcoming toxic relationships, about how cutting ties with people who hurt us is an act of self-preservation. And of course, people got the hint. James snapped. He began sending me angry messages, threatening to tell his side of the story. But he had nothing because in the end, the truth was on my side. He tried confronting some mutual friends, saying I was manipulative and painting him as a monster. But no one bought it. Things got even more interesting when I found out James had lost one of his jobs. It seemed his obsessive behavior had started affecting his professional life. People were beginning to see that he wasn't as stable as he made himself out to be. I even heard from a few sources that he had a meltdown at work when someone casually mentioned my name. It was almost funny, but I knew for him, it was the beginning of the end. And then, something unexpected happened. I received another message from him. But this time, it wasn't manipulation. It was short and simple. You win. I won't bother you anymore. For a moment, I thought it was just another tactic to make me let my guard down, but days passed, and for the first time in years, there were no more attempts to reach me. It seemed like he had finally realized there was no place for him in my life anymore. Today, I can say I feel lighter. I know he's still out there, trying to fix the mess he created, but that's no longer my problem. I'm focused on my internship, my projects, and the people who truly care about me. I've learned that some battles don't need to be won through direct confrontation. Sometimes, you just have to be smarter and know exactly where to strike. It's been a while since everything happened, and I've had plenty of time to think, to process, to heal, or at least try. And the truth is, I've realized something important, something I wish I had understood sooner. No one should ever have to accept abuse. Not from a stranger, not from a friend, and certainly not from family. For years, I carried this weight, this feeling that maybe I was overreacting, that maybe I should have just forgiven James and moved on. People told me I was holding on to the past, that I needed to let go, that family is everything. But you know what? That's just a lie we're told to keep us trapped in toxic cycles. Family isn't everything when they hurt you. Family isn't everything when they make you feel unsafe. Family isn't everything when they leave you to pick up the pieces of their actions and expect you to do it with a smile. I used to think I had to be the bigger person, that I had to forgive, to find peace. But forgiveness isn't some magic fix that erases what happened. It doesn't undo the fear, the humiliation, the betrayal. And it sure as hell doesn't mean I have to let someone back into my life just because they share my blood. What James did to me wasn't just a moment of anger. It was a betrayal of trust so deep that I don't think I'll ever fully recover from it. And the worst part? It wasn't just the slap. It was the words. The way he looked at me like I was nothing. The way he made me feel like I deserved it. The way he told me to clean up the mess as if my pain was an inconvenience to him. That's what I can't forget. And then, after all these years, he thought he could just waltz back into my life like nothing happened. Like he deserved a place in my celebrations. Like he had any right to share in my success. That's the thing about abusers. They always think they deserve another chance. They always think that you are the one being unreasonable. But I know better now. I know that walking away was the best thing I ever did. People will say, but he's changed. And maybe he has. Maybe he hasn't. The truth is, it doesn't matter. Change doesn't erase the past. Change doesn't entitle him to my trust. Change doesn't mean I owe him anything. I've learned that protecting myself isn't selfish. It's survival. I refuse to be guilt-tripped into giving second chances to people who have shown me who they really are. I refuse to water down my pain to make others feel comfortable. And I refuse to believe that just because someone is family, I have to accept their behavior. If there's one thing I want to tell anyone reading this, anyone who's ever felt the weight of guilt and obligation dragging them back into the arms of someone who hurt them, it's this: you don't owe anyone your peace. You don't owe anyone access to you just because of history or blood ties. If someone made you feel small, if someone made you feel afraid, if someone made you doubt your worth, you have every right to cut them out and never look back. I won't sugarcoat it. It's not easy. There are days when the guilt creeps in, when you wonder if you made the right choice. But then I remember that peace I found in his absence. I remember how much stronger I am now, how much more I value myself. And I remind myself that choosing me was the right decision all along. So no, I won't go back. I won't let him, or anyone else, guilt me into thinking I should. And I hope that anyone who's ever been in my shoes realizes the same. You don't have to accept abuse. You don't have to carry someone else's baggage just because they expect you to. And you don't have to let anyone convince you that family means putting up with things that hurt you. I'm done. And I'm never looking back.